Either she homeless or she got problems. That's the only reason why she run to a black man.
I like him already.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on!
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome.
Producer, director, writer. He is the ultimate filmmaker and bona fide foodie. You're listening to The Quidditas Factor with Michael J. Arbouet.
You came back. Hello and welcome to another episode of The Quidditas Factor. I'm your host, Michael J. Arbouet. But before we begin, Adriana, tell them what Quidditas means.
Quidditas, Latin, the whatness of a thing, the essential nature of something, the quality that makes a thing what it is.
Yes, the definition of Quidditas is the whatness or essence of a thing or person. And today we are concentrating on a producer and an actress who also happens to be married to a director. And what she's done with her career is just phenomenal. And if you are looking to boost yourself or change yourself in some way, then her story will certainly inspire you. I know it inspired me. It reminds me of a quote by Herman Melville, which basically states, "It is better to fail in originality than to succeed in imitation." So without further ado, let's welcome Summer Crockett Moore to the show. Hey, Summer, how's it going?
How are you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm hanging in.
So I always like to start the show with the beginning. So tell me about the beginning, Summer. Tell me about those early years.
Yeah, so I was that kid who at like 4 or 5 years old, would go up to someone who was holding a microphone and before I could even talk, and just somehow I realized that that was a storytelling, apparatus. And so it's really funny. My mom and dad used to joke that I was the kid with the Barbie microphone because they got me one that would connect to the speakers in the house. And so I think it started very young with me. I didn't really understand what, being an actor was, that was a thing. But I knew that, we would go to storytelling festivals when I was a kid. I knew that stories affected me deeply and that I wanted to figure out a way to be part of them. So my first quote unquote acting job was in the play Frosty the Snowman in 6th grade. And that was my first experience on stage. And I was like, ooh, this is fun. I had an audience response. And so when I got to high school, I was very focused. I was in the Madrigals, which is a singing group. I was always in choirs. We competed. They were a cappella choirs. It's like the movies, Pitch Perfect. That I was one of those kids. So I was in theater. I was in Madrigals, and I knew by my freshman year in high school that this is something I wanted to do professionally. And so I grew up in a very small town in rural Tennessee, and so there was a lot of people were like, what do you mean that's not a thing? But I had very supportive parents, artists in their own right, and they supported me. So I had great teachers in high school who also supported me and helped me. I was part of the National Forensics League, which I'm sure this still exists, but it was a competitive thing. You could compete in drama or extemporaneous speaking or duet acting. They had all these different categories. So I did that, and that got me to state championships, which helped me realize, oh, there is a whole life out there beyond the small town I grew up in. And so I moved to New York City right after high school to pursue it, full steam, and just never looked back.
Wow. So Did you go to college for acting, or you just moved to the city? And
I did. So, yep, I started at NYU, which I loved, but it was way too expensive for me. And I decided after my first semester there that I did not want to be saddled with that kind of debt if I was going to be an artist. So I transferred out to a conservatory instead on a partial scholarship, which was very helpful. And so I went to Circle in the Square Theater School, and I studied for 1 year at the American Musical Dramatic Academy, because at that point I hadn't really figured out that I was a terrible dancer, like fall off the stage, bad dancer. So my musical theater career was not looking very promising, because actor who moves would be a stretch. I'm a bad dancer. So Circle in the Square was where I really focused. I did the 2-year conservatory program there. And then after I graduated and started, auditioning professionally and waiting tables professionally, I also continued studying at the Terry Schreiber theater program here in New York. And I did that, on and off for years, just to kind of, keep fresh. Mm-hmm. So yes, I as my sister will say, she's got her doctorate. She went to all these finishing schools. I didn't go to quote unquote real college.
So tell me about your first job. Like, I know I've seen you in a bunch of television. So I'm assuming your first job must have been in television. Tell me about that first experience.
Yeah. So my first paying gig was a Crest commercial. Mm-hmm. And I was really fresh out of school. And it's really funny. I didn't realize when I went on the audition what it even was. I had, these were back in the days when you had a pager. It's my agent, Ann Wright Reps. God bless Ann Wright. She scoops me right up as a kid and just helped me stand straight. She, paged me, and I ran to a payphone, these things that don't exist anymore either, and called her and got the audition and went. And it was beginner's luck. I booked a national commercial kind of right out of the gate. And that's when I realized, oh, you can actually make a living, a good living, if you're smart and save your money. Mm-hmm. So that was one of the first paid gigs that I got. And it helped me realize that I could supplement, while I was chasing the theater jobs and the film and television jobs, I could supplement with voiceovers, which was a whole different thing that really opened up for me. And I do believe that being musically trained helped, because it helped me have a different kind of control over my voice in a way that could be manipulated, Mm-hmm. But so it helped me realize there are many different ways to make a living in this industry. And so I think it opened up my eyes to the fact that in front of the camera, behind the camera, beside the camera, in the booth, talking about the camera, all of these things are in their own way storytelling. And so I was finding the way to fulfill myself in a whole different way than just being an actor in front of the camera, pursuing it from one side,
Okay. So I heard you say agent, and a lot of people listening to this show have struggled finding an agent. How did you find an agent?
So it's very interesting. And I've had many agents over the years. So I'm in my 40s now. So I've been doing this a really long time, 20 something years. My first agent, who was Ann Wright, came to a scene night at Circle in the Square Theater School where I was graduating, and saw me and called me the next day. So she came to a place where I was performing specifically for industry. And I was very lucky to have that happen. Since that time, I've had managers. I have different agents for voiceover versus theater versus on camera. And I've had agents over the years that were not a match. They had different ideas of what they wanted, or they didn't appreciate if I didn't want to do a certain role. I'm not super picky, but there are certain times when you just don't connect with a role, or you don't feel like it's the story you want to tell. And I've had challenges there. But so finding the agent that gets you and that understands that, you're a team, your partners, can be a real challenge. And when it doesn't match, it can feel devastating. You can feel like, oh, is something wrong with me? Am I not good enough? And I had to set that aside very early and just say, this is a big world, and there's a match for everyone. So I would tell people who are not represented to don't be disheartened and find a way to tell your story no matter what. It's one of the reasons, honestly, that I became a producer, because I was so tired of telling the same stories. Like, people like to pigeonhole. Well, they don't like to. It's easy for people to pigeonhole you, because if you're easy to stick in a category, people can just stick you there over and over and over, and you'll keep working and they'll make money, right?
Right.
But if that category is something that you also feel you have other sides of yourself you want to explore, it can be challenging to get people to see you that way. It's one of the reasons I became a producer, because it gave me more control over the types of stories I was telling, the types of roles I was playing. And it let me showcase myself in a different way, which ultimately showed a diversity in the type of roles I was able to play, and really opened up the possibilities in a way that I don't think would have happened, if I hadn't had an active hand in it. And I have to be very lucky and be married to an incredible writer, director, producer, Tony Glazer, who, I remember sitting with him very early in our relationship saying, it's so unfortunate that I only am going to play school teachers and soccer moms. And he was like, well, what do you want to play? And I was like, I don't know. It'd be great if I could play a drug addict or something. I was so dramatic. And he was like, well, why don't I just write you something? And he did. He wrote me an incredible role that was one of the first features we produced together. And it was a role that kind of changed my trajectory. I won a lot of awards for it. It put our company on the map in a way. And I remember my agent saying to me, wow, that's a whole different side. And I was like, yeah, that's what I wanted. So sometimes you just have to make it happen, make it happen.
So tell me about that first project. What was the name of that film, and what was your role?
So the film is called Junction, and it's really funny. I just got a little alert from Google that Junction we opened our production office for Junction almost 10 years ago next month. So it was 2010, and it was a feature film that Tony wrote and he directed, and I was one of the producers, and we had an incredible cast and crew, and really it set the bar high for us because it just came together in a way that was so special that it makes you want to work that way all the time. So it's a story about and it's available, still to this day. You can say overseas it's called Hostage. They changed the name overseas, but here, in the States it's called Junction, and you can see it on Amazon Prime or Tubi or Vudu or everything. Just Google it. But so it's a story about 4 meth addicted young adults who are out of money, out of options. They're homeless. They're living in their car, and they break into a house to steal a television to trade with their drug dealer to get more drugs. And they break into a house that was not a good choice, because it's a hostage situation. The police are called. The SWAT team shuts down the block. It doesn't end very well for them, but it's a cautionary tale about the choices you make and how quickly your life can derail if you turn down the wrong path.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So let me rewind a little bit and tell me about how you met your husband and how that whole partnership began, because I'm going to have another question for you after that. But let me start at the beginning and hear that part. Yeah,
so I was a waitress, and I was working at a place that's no longer around, Upper West Side, Chaz and Wilson. And I had just broken up with someone who was an actor who was moving to Los Angeles, and I was devastated. And I told one of my good friends who was waiting tables with me, who was also an actor, I was like, that's it, I'm done. I can't date anymore. This is just it's awful. I'm done. And he's like, well, that's funny, because my best friend just broke up with his girlfriend, who's a writer, and he's a writer, and he's done with dating writers. So maybe you should meet. I was like, yeah, I'm not into it. I'm not meeting anybody. He's like, well, he's at the bar. I kind of set it up that he was going to come here tonight to meet you. And so you should meet him. And I was like, I have a dirty ponytail. I've been crying. This is not good. I turned around and looked, and I saw Tony Glazer at the bar, and I went, okay, maybe I can date again. We'll just leave it like that. And so it's funny, our very first date, neither one of us had wanted to be there. And we ended up staying out till about 4 a.m. talking at a diner, drinking coffee. Like, it was one of those things where, you know, there was just no pressure because neither of us thought this was something we wanted. And he turned out to be the best surprise and the greatest guy. And just, it took us a very long time to officially get together. We took it very slow because we both, you know, had our careers to think about, and it just worked out. You know, timing was everything. And so about a year later, after having been friends who kind of supported each other, we had a real date and everything kind of clicked. And we've been together ever since. We have been married for 16 years. And the company is almost 18 years old. So we started the company together, you know, before we were even married.
Wow, that's a fantastic story. So I have to ask because I made this move and it didn't work out for me. You know, when I graduated from film school, of course, I jumped right on a plane and I went to California and found that I hated California. How come you didn't do the same thing?
It's funny. Before I decided to go to school in New York, I spent about 6 weeks in Los Angeles and just to check it out because I knew it was either LA or New York, one or the other. And while it was beautiful and sunny and I kind of felt like I was on vacation there, I opted not to live there because I didn't feel the sense of community that I felt in New York. I felt everything was very disjointed and I didn't love being in my car all day, you know. And I've gone and worked in California several times over the years, and it's a lovely place to visit, but it's just not, it's not for me. You know, I'm an East Coast girl, I think, at heart. And I love to visit there. I call it the plastic fantastic. I'm like, it's the plastic fantastic, you know. But it just, you know, I mean, obviously, if there was, you know, a network television show or, you know, we needed to be there for work, great. I'll have fresh orange juice every morning. I'll have a lemon tree that doesn't have to, you know, live on my shelf. And it will be great. I'll get a convertible. Like, there's a beautiful life there. It feels like a vacation spot to me. Right. You know, for some reason, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I had a similar experience, but worse. I found that a lot of Californians don't really like New Yorkers. And of course, when I tried to go there, they knew immediately I was a New Yorker because I was speaking and walking too fast.
Of course.
They couldn't take they were so laid back. I remember I went for a job interview and it was supposed to be at 2:30 and I got there at 2 and they're like, we weren't expecting it till 3. And I'm like, but what?
Yeah.
So,
I remember the first time I went there for a bunch of business meetings. It's really funny. I had made an itinerary and I made like 6 meetings in one day. And on my second meeting, somebody was like, no, you don't do that in LA. There's not enough time. You have to be an hour in your car between. I was like, no, I have a grid. And I realized very quickly, I was like, oh yeah, I can't do 6 meetings in one day. What was I? That's a New York thing.
Yeah.
2-hour lunch and yeah.
Okay, for my next question, I know that sometimes this could be a secret, but I noticed that you guys are coming out with a movie almost every year. So how do you come up with the money to do this?
I mean, I'll tell you, when we got together, and he's a great partner because the two of us can brainstorm. We do our 5-year plan, but we found that we've been redoing it every year because things just kind of started to snowball. Our business plan was always that we wanted to be able to be doing theater, film, and television. And theater was where we started because it was the easiest. It was the most accessible for us. And we both came from the theater world. So that's really where we started. And I mean, the first show I produced, we can talk about it. It was a whole different way of producing. And I was like, oh, if you can pivot and try to go in through the side door instead of walking through the front door, you might have a chance. So Tony and I really have always been very focused on having multiple things in development at the same time. And when the iron strikes or it's hot and it works, always know what the next project is so that you can use that momentum. So that's what's happened for us. You know, it was very hard raising the money for Junction, which, you know, we had 14 investors and it was all private equity and we had a very detailed business plan and we had partners and it took about 5 years to raise that money, which was it was a very dedicated, long process. Since that time, we've never used crowdfunding for any of our projects. I was part of a nonprofit theater company once where we did a couple of crowdfunding things because it was a nonprofit, and that was interesting. But we've always gone straight to private equity. We've done financing via hedge fund models. We've used tax credit incentives. So every project we do has multiple layers of financing to it. We do a lot of pre-sales now. We have sales partners. And the more we produce, the more we refine our business models so that it's less risky each and every time. Because it's, you know, entertainment's one of those things where you just never know. It could hit really big, or it could break even, or you could lose all the money. So we try to offset that. And we also have been very fortunate to work with people who are like-minded. And so, you know, sometimes we're co-proing, sometimes we're production servicing, where the reason we've had so many projects in a row is a lot of times people will come to us and they've already raised all the money, and we produce the project for them or with them. So we become a production services entity as well as being, you know, producers. So there's a lot of partnerships. Collaboration has been a really important part of our success, I think. You know, we're not doing it all by ourselves.
Right.
And it's always been financed money. It's, you know, we put money into one of our projects of our own one time to get started. And then, you know, we put it into our company basically. And that's just not something that we've ever had to do again or even been able to do again.
Right.
You know? So I think the business plan is the most important piece, because if you can show how the project will recoup, even partially, even if it, you know, and it's another reason we love to produce in the state of New York, because the tax incentive here is so strong for film and television. And it's one of the things, you know, we manage sound stages now as part of our business, Umbra Stages in Newburgh in the Hudson Valley. Mm-hmm. And the reason that whole thing happened was because the tax credits brought us there, and we found incredible partners there who had the real estate and partnered with us for us to manage the stages. So I would say the ability to multitask and pivot and expand the vision of what the goal is to include the unexpected has been an incredible building block for us and our company.
Well, I have to tell you, please write a book, because nobody knows about this. I've worked with so many people who somehow raise thousands of dollars, and I just see it burned away, you know, just completely thrown away. You know, I don't want to mention names, but I've worked with a couple of directors where they asked me to produce something, and they started with a large budget, and I said, well, where's the money? And they go, oh, we spent it on this actor or this actor. I'm like, and how much did you spend? How much did you pay him? And
yeah,
it's crazy. Like, I know there's the pay-for-play deals, but there's one director in particular. I guess they like to do his movies because he pays them very well, but doesn't leave any money left for the cast and crew. So he doesn't. Yeah. So the movie doesn't come out as well as it should.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
It's that double-edged sword, right? You spend all the money above the line, and then you're hamstrung.
So that comes to my next question. You produced a film called Lost Cat Corona. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so that was a great partnership. So City Squirrel Films is the name of the company that approached us. Anthony Tarsitano was an incredible businessman with a wonderful track record in advertising and marketing. And he had written this very fun script, Lost Cat Corona. And he was looking for producers, because he was directing. He was looking for producers to help package the project and get it made. And so we had a wonderful time working with him. We filmed it all over, you know, Queens, and filmed all in his old neighborhood. And it was wonderful. It was a challenge. It was a very big cast, lots and lots of locations, filming on location during the summer in New York. But we had a great team, and it was a lot of fun. And the cats were so well trained. I think we had 4 cats that all played Leonard, the one who's missing.
Right. And it's funny. Let me tell you, like I said, I've done indie film on Long Island, New York for a long time.
Yeah.
And I have never, I've spoken to Ralph Macchio many times. I've never got him to say yes to a movie. So when I saw him in this, I said, she must be magic because he turns everything down.
Oh, it must have been timing. He was so great. I love him. And I love his daughter, Julia, too. She was in one of our movies, Holy Broken, and just such a delightful family. And he was great. I mean, he had to do so much. And he had a stunt where he had to get chased by a very large dog. He was such a pro. Yeah, he was wonderful. He was wonderful. From the very first day we met him, just such a great guy.
Yeah, I've always wanted to work with him. I still bug him.
I often credit Judy Bowman has cast our upcoming TV series, which comes out July 1st, Big Dogs. She did an incredible job. And, Pat McCorkle is an incredible casting director. We've worked with her on multiple movies over the years. I am a strong believer that attaching a great collaborative casting director early in the process really makes all the difference in the world.
Wow. Okay. So now tell me about your television show, Big Dogs?
Oh, Big Dogs.
Yes.
Okay. This is probably, I could not be more excited. It is a project based on a series of books. The books were written by Adam Dunn. He is the creator of this series. The books are Rivers of Gold, Big Dogs, Saint Underground, and The Unfathomable Deep. They've been out, they were written in 2008. They came out in 2010, I believe. Mm-hmm. Adam Dunn is, I'll call him prescient. What he has written about in these books, they were futuristic books at the time. And, they're set in a dystopian future where a pandemic has happened, financial collapse is happening.
You sure he's not a psychic?
I actually said to him this week, I was like, Adam, did you ever think this would be happening? Because, every day we turn the news on and we go, well, look at that. That's happening in our show right now. That's a little scary. People are not going to understand what's going on. So yeah, Big Dogs is set in New York City in the not too distant future. There is financial collapse happening. People are homeless living in Central Park. There's a pandemic coming. There's shadow banking and foreign governments infiltrating our political system. It's a thriller. It's a crime thriller. It got an incredible cast and crew put this thing together. It's 8 episodes, each an hour long. We premiere on July 1st on Amazon Prime Video and Tubi. So you can watch it either way. And I could not be more excited about this show. It was the biggest thing we undertook. We shot, it took us over 9 months to film. It took us, including post, almost 2 years to get the project to completion. Mm-hmm. We filmed 101 days, 23 of them in Manhattan, the rest in upstate New York, cheating from Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And we had the best cast and crew on this project. I'm telling you, they're family now. They're like film family, so much love. Our hashtag is Big Dogs TV, so you can see all the incredible clips, the sneak peeks, the trailer. It's a great show with a huge diverse cast. It's one of the things I'm most proud of is that there's just so many different storylines that follow so many different, roads, and it's pretty shocking when the final mystery is revealed. It's like, okay. Wow. So I love it. It's so it was created by Adam Dunn, Tony, my partner in all things, and Adam wrote the 8 episodes adapted from the book. And we had 4 incredible directors and a cast of about 83 people and a stunt cast of about 120. So it was a very, very big story.
Wow, that sounds amazing and amazingly expensive.
Oh yeah, we shut down the Queensboro Bridge for a car stunt scene. Wow. And we had to do it 3 times because the first day it rained, the second day it snowed. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
Nothing matched. We were like, no.
So it's funny. A lot of people now are starting to see and starting to find out that television is the place to be because the indie world has kind of been put on its ear. and it's very hard to make a film. How did you get into television? How did you make that shift? And what's some advice that you can give to a lot of people who are trying to break into this field?
Sure. We knew after, I think, our third or fourth independent film that you needed like a magic sauce to be able to really, survive. It's like independent film kind of became like the new theater. You're like, wait a minute, you could have a really big success, or you could just scrape by, or, you could be lost. I loved, from day one, I loved the idea of television because you got to tell a much bigger, broader story, right? You could follow the characters into much deeper, rabbit holes of depth for their storylines. But it also, on a job creation front, is incredible because you're creating thousands of jobs for months and months and months at a time. So it's something we knew we wanted to do. And we started developing projects that had much broader story arcs that could have 2 or 3 or 4 seasons. That's why when we were introduced to Adam Dunn, and he and Tony had their first kind of story meeting, I was like, this would be an incredible thing to work on, because he's already got 4 novels that could span, up to 6 seasons of content. So I think just the way to get into it is to really become a creator of story that is compelling and has the potential for multiple seasons. We just finished watching The Watchmen on HBO, and blown away by the incredible, also very timely. And I wasn't a fan of the comics. Like, I didn't even know that's, what it was. I just wanted to see it because the minute I saw the trailer, I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And when I found out that the creators of that was a one and done, like that was, they didn't want to do more, I was kind of heartbroken, but I also understood it because it was so perfectly encompassed the storyline they wanted to tell. So I guess my advice for people looking to make that transition is to make sure that you have a story that can carry for that long.
Right.
And that characters that are that compelling that you really want to see them in a very expanded landscape.
Okay.
And produce it in a place that has a tax credit.
Well, like I said, you definitely need to write a book, because I'm telling you, a lot of the indie people that I talk to don't, they know about a tax credit. They know how to use the tax credit, maybe, if they're lucky. But beyond that, I see them raise a lot of money, and they end up just losing a lot of it because they, like you said, they don't have a plan. They don't have a business plan.
The plan is the most important thing. And listen, that's not to say that the plan can't shift or, give yourself the ability to be wrong and change your mind. But having a plan that involves, reverse engineering your success, if possible, is my new best advice. Because, with Junction, had we known what the landscape, looked like, because the independent film was shifting that year. That was the year that, like, all of a sudden technology shifted so much that instead of 2,000 submissions to a festival, they're getting 200,000 submissions to a festival, because everybody could make a movie all of a sudden. So I think the most important thing is, what is your end result that you want, and how can you reverse engineer to get there? So I just was speaking with a brand new filmmaker last week that was wanting to work on a project with us. And they said, let's just start. I've raised this much money. And I said, no, don't spend a penny until you have the full scope of what you want to do. Otherwise, you're going to burn through all your development money, and it's going to be gone, and you're going to be left with nothing. So you can't even recoup that money. So you got to be patient with yourself and know that it takes time, and that taking time isn't a sign of failure. It means that you're really coming up with a plan that's going to have legs.
Wow, great advice. Tell me, as an actress, what was your favorite role? And tell me about the movie and the role.
Oh.
Or it could be television. Doesn't have to be a movie.
It's so many. I mean, that's a tough one. I love, I'll always have a special place in my heart for Kari in Junction, because she was so far removed from who I was in real life, but she felt so close to me because you make one really, really bad choice and your whole life could derail. And that's I'm very type A in my life. So I like to be in charge. And what I loved about that role is that she was not in charge. There was no control. And it was like the wild ride of what is happening. And when I compare that to the role that I have in Big Dogs, I play a treasury agent. Right. So I work for the government and I wear a badge and a gun and I'm after the bad guys. But it comes to find out that, Treasury's not so clean either. So talk about the flip side of two characters. One's a meth addict who's like being held hostage. And ultimately, I won't give away the ending of Junction, but ultimately doesn't win versus, a Treasury agent who's chasing down international terrorists and shadow bankers, but who's breaking a lot of rules on her own to try to be the white knight.
Right.
I mean, I also have such a fond place in my heart for a character in a play called Reading Under the Influence. Her name is Sarah in the play. She's a soccer mom who's got a drinking problem. She drinks like about 2 bottles of Chardonnay during the course of the play. And she's an unfulfilled mother who feels like she doesn't have a voice. And it's one of the funniest roles I've played, but also very sad, very heartbreaking. But she's, really not found who she is. She's put all of her energy into these kids and making sure her house is beautiful for her husband, who's the banker or whatever. And so she only finds her voice after, downing a bunch of Chardonnay in a room full of women who probably aren't even listening to her. It's, I like complicated, messy characters.
Mm-hmm.
I love finding the flaws and making them beautiful, because I think that when we look at how we're all not perfect and how we all can be better and how we can help each other get there by admitting, being truthful that we're human and that we're messy and complicated, that there's hope there to come out on the other side of it, stronger and better.
Wow. Okay. Tell me about a person that touched your heart and how they changed your life.
Oh, okay. I'm just going to go with the first one that came into my mind. His name is Kenneth Humphreys. He was my madrigal teacher. He was a Southern preacher, and he taught music at the high school where I went to school, in Henry County High School. Kenneth, we sang spirituals. We were an a cappella group. He, I think, was one of the funniest, most honest people I've ever met in my life. And he saw something in me that really, I don't know, being a teenage girl, it was really tough sometimes, I'm sure it's tougher now with kids with social media, but he helped me believe in myself and have a freedom and a silliness, and that it was okay to mess up. And he's one of the first people who said, I know you're probably going to get a lot of people tell you it's not possible to have a career in this field, but I believe in you. And I think we should get you to Carnegie Hall, right? Because it was music based. And he got me all the way to Washington, D.C. in a competition, and it changed my life. I love that man. I saw him recently when I was visiting Tennessee. My father passed away, and we were down there packing my mom up and closing up, business. And he came, and, I'm out of high school, 25 years now. He came to see me. And he's been retired for years. He came to see me while I was home, and just the best man.
Tell me something that people often misunderstand about you.
Oh, okay. It's going to make me a little sad to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think people often think, because I'm really nice and I'm really Southern and pleasant, that I'm a pushover or that I'm not smart. And it's disappointing when I find out that that's the case. And I think it just says something about people who mistake kindness for weakness. And it teaches me a lot about myself. I'm not going to change how I am. I try to always be nice and pleasant and give people, the benefit of the doubt. But I've been disappointed a few times recently to realize, they think they can take advantage of me.
It's so funny you say that, because I asked the same question of an actor friend of mine, and he basically said the same thing. He's one of the nicest guys I know, and he said he hates that people think that he's weak or a pushover, and that especially in this business, he says he's not going to become an asshole because that's what expected of people. He's still going to be a nice person because that's how he was treated, and that's how he wants to treat other people. So
Totally.
it's funny how many times I've heard that same answer, that people think that, and it's crazy.
Really funny. I got a nickname, one of my friends on Big Dogs, actually, and it's kind of stuck. My nickname is now Ginger Dragon because I'm a redhead. People say, nobody understands that if you get mad, it can be really, really scary. And they call me Ginger Dragon because they're like, you will burn the ground. And it's funny because I don't get mad very often, but if I'm mad, there's probably a really good reason. And then people are no longer confused about if I'm this nice, sweet person. Oh yeah. If people call for me on the walkie-talkie and they're like, is Ginger Dragon there? I know somebody's in trouble.
That is hilarious.
You know what? There's always a way to pivot. I often say to people, also failing is not the end of the world. So you failed. So what? We all fail. At least it means you're trying to do something. You're not sitting there complacent and just miserable. I think that fear is a very powerful thing and it can paralyze you. And so I try to remind myself if I'm scared, it probably means I'm challenging myself. But also, the worst thing that could happen is not failing. The worst thing that could happen is not growing,
Mm-hmm. If you could turn back time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her?
If I could talk to 18-year-old Summer, I would tell her, baby girl, it doesn't matter if everybody likes you. You're not going to make everybody happy all the time. You're going to do the best you can to do the next right thing. If you make a mistake, pick yourself up and try to correct it from there forward. Cut yourself some slack. And most importantly, you don't have to be this idea of perfection. I spent a lot of my youth beating myself up because I wasn't skinny enough, or I wasn't smart enough, or I wasn't pretty enough, or, and what a waste of energy. I hope young women and young men know that they can cut themselves some slack, because a lot of us who look like we have it all together absolutely do not, nor should we. We're messy, complicated people.
Yeah, that's so true. If outside of acting, what are you curious about right now?
Oh, I am so curious. I wish I could show you the magazine I was just reading before. It's called The Homestead Life. I am so curious and so longing to get a piece of land. Tony and I had this little dream, right? It was our 5-year plan. And now that we're so much in upstate New York, I'm like, this is our this year plan. I want to get a piece of land that has enough space where if I wanted to do some sort of agricultural, like solar or, commercial composting or equine farming, or maybe even hemp, I don't know, we'll see. Mm-hmm. I could do that and still have like 10 acres left. I want to have a greenhouse. I want to have a big organic garden. I want to have a cutting garden for flowers. And I want to have like 3 or 4 guest rooms so that fellow artists can come over and we can have dinner parties and collaborate, and maybe a barn with some baby goats and some barn cats. I am so craving a farm life. I know it's so opposite of what, like, I'm working 16 hours a day on set, like plugged into my laptop, my walkie-talkie, my iPhone. The other part of me wants to go and like walk around barefoot in overalls and make jam. Like it's really, really the flip side of this whole equation.
Well, it's so funny because with this whole pandemic thing happening, I think a lot of people want some land and they just want to be left alone.
That's it. During this pandemic, we turned our whole so we have this little brownstone, right? Our backyard is about the size of my computer screen. It's this perfect little square. but I've been growing everything, and I've got all these staggered, hydroponic garden situation
Mhm.
happening, and it's working. It's amazing. I'm loving it. I go out and I talk to my peppers and my cauliflower and my basil.
I've been making bread.
See? You
Yeah.
can come to my dinner party. You can bring the bread, and I can make some jam. We can put it on the bread, and then we'll talk about making a movie. See, it'll be perfect. Yeah.
So this next question is kind of funny. It's like a funny question. If you could have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Okay. I would definitely invite Tori Amos because I think she's one of the most incredible muse artists of our lifetime. And I'm just reading her book right now called Resistance, and it's all about what she faced as an artist in her life and how she pivoted and how she told the story she wanted to tell. So she would be like a number one. I would really like to have Michelle Obama at that table. I think she is so smart and savvy and powerful. And after having read Becoming, which is her book, and then seeing the documentary, the making of her Becoming tour, I just think I could learn so much and be inspired in a whole nother way from what I could do in the community standpoint. Just to listen to her talk for the dinner party would be incredible. And then you said 3? 3
Mhm.
people?
3 people.
I think the third person I want to bring is my Granny Crockett from Beyond the Grave, Olivia Jane. Not only because I would like to have her in the kitchen with me to prepare for this dinner party, because she taught me about 90% of what I know and taught my mom the rest. I would love for her to be at the table to see 2 women who have come up in a time where women were allowed to thrive and be defiant and be strong. And I think Granny Crockett, who, raised 4 beautiful children and was the wife of a church elder, would probably have a lot to say and would be thrilled to see the progress that's being made.
Wow, that's great. It's funny because you mentioned Tori Amos. I love Tori Amos.
Oh, I love her.
I love Tori Amos.
So much.
In the 90s, we listened to a radio station I hear called WLIR, and they used to give away tickets all the time to shows. And I won tickets, and I brought my girlfriend, who's my wife now, backstage, and we got to meet her and talk to her. And I was like, you said Tori Amos. I was like, oh, I can't believe this.
I love her. I've seen her in concert, I think 18, 19 times. It's from the time I'm 18 years old was the first time I saw her to, her last tour. So that was just like a year and a half, 2 years ago. I'm obsessed, and she's so magical. Isn't she just magical?
Her lyrics and the way that she sings, it just brings you like on another level. And I remember me and my friend Mike, we're also obsessed with her. I think we stared at that album of her pretending to be Houdini's wife, and she's got the key in her mouth.
Yeah.
We sit there and stare at that album for hours. Like,
yeah. It's like you're possessed when you're listening to her. You are transported, and you become. I love how she talks about the songs as her girls, and they're like all the girls that live in her, and they talk to her, and they're kittens in her head. I'm like, girl, I am right there with you. You are channeling this beautiful muse. If you've not read her new book, Resistance, it is, wow, it's fabulous.
I'm gonna have to pick it up now. Yeah, I haven't read it yet.
It's so good. And it really, it's the story of how she, came to be the storyteller she is, and a lot of the challenges she faced. But also it's a whole other level to her songs and what they meant to her when she wrote them and what they mean now. Oof, I got chill bumps.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Oh, I'm excited.
And you could come to that dinner party too, because I'm sure Michelle Obama and my Granny Crockett would love to meet you as
well. Are there any funny stories or memories from a film or television set that you want to tell me?
Oh my gosh, I'm sure there's got to be many. Funny stories. I mean, I laugh almost every day when I'm on set, but I gotta think about this one. I mean, there's so many, but you know what? This is an interesting one. This is from the set of Lost Cat Corona. Are you a baseball fan?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know Mookie?
Yes.
So we were on set in Queens, and we were filming a scene, and Mookie just happened to be staying at the hotel we were, because I guess he was there for Citi Field. Is it Citi Field? Okay, so I guess he was there for some event at Citi Field. And he's walking through the lobby, and I was like, oh my gosh. And our director was a huge fan, and I was like, well, let's ask him to be the priest. It's one scene. He's an extra, but I'm sure he'd love to do it. It'd be really cool. It's with Ralph Macchio and David Zayas. Let's ask him. What's the worst that could happen? So we went up to him and asked him, and he was like, you know what? I've got the morning free. Is it shooting right now? And we're like, yeah. So he puts on the priest costume, and we all go to the location, which is, 2 blocks away, and everybody's loving it. Like the neighborhood's starting to talk about it. They're like, is that Mookie Williams? Like, it's him. So we get there, and of course, there's a construction crew that was not planned. They're jackhammering the street. They're breaking everything up. And we're like, oh no, what are we going to do? I was like, let me go over and ask them if they could stop. And I go over, and they're like, no, we have a schedule. We have to get in here. We have to do our thing. We can't stop for you. You'll figure it out. And then one of the guys in the construction crew was like, wait, is that Mookie? I was like, yeah, he's in our movie. And they said, if you can get him to come over and do a picture for me, for my son, will hold the noise. And so they stopped jackhammering for about 35 minutes, and he came over, and so did Ralph, and so did David, and everybody took pictures, and it saved the day.
Wow. I don't know. I don't know what's better, that you just went up to him and say, hey, you want to be in the movie?
The luck was with me that day, because he was game for it. He had a great time, and he got a construction crew to quit jackhammering in the middle of Queens.
Wow. Oh, that is so funny. Oh, yeah, my goodness.
That was just good luck and karma, and really nice guys,
What's one thing that acting did for you that you didn't expect?
Let's see. I think that acting probably opened my eyes to a lot of issues that I might not have known about. I'm working on a project right now called After Party that we're just in the final phases of development for. We are almost fully raised, knock on wood. But there's a role that Tony Glazer, obviously writing and directing, there's a role in it that he's created for me, because we were watching a documentary about human trafficking and about the incredible amount of people who are involved in the profitability of it, including some very, very powerful business people. And when you start to realize there's another whole layer to this that all ties back to money and how awful it is, I would say that I've now done a really deep dive into this, because the character I'm playing is not a good person. But it's really opened my eyes to what a horrible situation this is on a global level, and that we need to get involved. And so the reason we're telling this story, it's a crime thriller, and it's a very exciting and a very uplifting movie in the end. But boy, there's some dark corners. So I would say acting has opened my eyes to some of the underbellies of this world that are upsetting. But it's good to, knowledge is power, and maybe we can right some wrong here.
Okay. And my last question is, what does the future hold for Summer?
A farm and baby goats. No, I'm just kidding. I think the future is surprising me every day. I'll tell you, my hopes for the future are that we continue being able to tell stories on a bigger, broader scale, that we get to collaborate with more wonderful partners all across the world, and expand our point of view. And I do hope that I get to have a lot of dinner parties at my future farm, and you'll have to come and be at one of them, because I love nothing more than talking to people and learning about their stories and how it can help influence me to be a better person and a better artist and a better, storyteller. So I hope my future holds a lot of storytelling on a big, big scale.
Oh, thank you so much for doing this interview. It was so much fun talking to you.
I'm so inspired. I want to go like make bread and jam and plan this dinner party.
What a great interview. Summer, can you take us out?
Hi, this is Summer Crockett Moore, and you are listening to the Quidditas Factor.
Hey guys, before you go, if you like the show, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And for more information on me or the show, you can go to MikeArbouet.com. That's MikeArbouet.com. Buy some merch, check out my books, see what movies I'm working on. And thank you for listening. Tune in next week for an all-new episode of the Quidditas Factor.
Thanks so much for listening to the Quidditas Factor with Michael J. Arbouet. We'll catch you next time.